there said that he almost looks like he's trying to cram 4 years into one at Carolina. He's trying to do a little bit too much. He's trying to make things happen a little bit too often. When if he would just kind of slow down and play his game, he would look a little bit better out there. But yeah, I think Keeling I've been a little bit surprised with in terms of him not playing as well as I thought he would. The guys have said he literally has an elite level mid-range game. So I think that will shine through just because he is an elite scorer. I mean, he had 20-some points at Clemson last year for Charleston Southern. So he's a guy that can produce, and he will. I think he's just right now looking a little bit shell-shocked by everything that's going on, maybe just a little bit slower to adjust than Justin Pierce is. But Pierce is surprised me a little bit. I thought against Notre Dame he looked okay. He didn't look great, in my opinion. He did some nice things, hit a few shots. Got some rebounds, but I think against UNCW, a team he's played against 2 or 3 times before, when he was in William and Mary, I think we just saw a little bit of comfort level out of him, and that might go on to be a real booster of confidence for him because he's played against UNCW many times before in his career, and then he goes out and does it for Carolina and produces like he does, and has the night he did, hit a lot of big shots, grabbed a lot of really solid rebounds, just looked an all-around better player and more comfortable out there than he ever did against Notre Dame, even late night with Roy and seeing even some of the open practices we've been able to watch. I think against UNCW we really saw Justin Pierce's game and the potential it has. So now the really only thing for him to do is prove that he can do it at the ACC level because as of right now, until he puts the kind of numbers that he put up against UNCW, until he does that against an ACC team, I think the jury's still going to be a little bit out on him. But I think Justin Pierce's size, his athleticism, his ability to shoot the ball is going to shine through. So, to answer your question, I've been pleasantly surprised with what Justin Pierce has done, and I've been a little bit surprised with what Keeling has done, but kind of in a negative way. And I think that will get better for him. Like I said, I think he's just trying to do a little too much right now. I think his head's a little bit on a swivel. And once he calms down and just realizes he needs to play his game, I think you'll see Keeling shine through. And they're going to need it. Carolina's going to need it. I keep saying it, but they got to find consistent scorers that can come in and put up points night in and night out.
Right.
And right now, I mean, we've seen a few guys do it, but right now, really the only guy they have is Cole Anthony. That's why you're seeing him shoot as many shots as he has. So somebody's going to have to step up, and I think Keeling and Pierce will. But like I said, for both of them, the jury's still out until they do it against a really high-level school, which I guess you could say neither of them have necessarily done that yet. But, Carolina's only 2 games in.
Well, Justin Pierce is going to be counted on a little bit more here, at least for the next couple of games, mainly just because of the injury to Armando Bacot. Now, I know Bacot, they said, look, the concussion is not serious enough to where he won't be able to play. He is going to play tomorrow night against Gardner-Webb, but with concussions, that's never something you really want to mess with. So, what is the latest that you're hearing with Bacot and so far, what have you thought of his game?
I think Bacot's looked all right. It was disappointing to see him go out against UNCW with that concussion. He looked, the first few minutes that he did play against UNCW before he got hurt, I know he got hurt early in the first half, but he didn't look very good. He looked a little bit, I don't know what the right word would be. Maybe a little bit confused at times, just almost lost at times. He just didn't, seemed like his head was on a swivel, which you can kind of expect. That was a really hostile environment at UNCW. Make no mistake about it. I mean, that place was loud. That place was packed. And I think, even Carolina didn't really play necessarily very well in the first 10 or 15 minutes or so of that game. And I think you could really see that with Bacot. But I think Bacot will be fine. I think he's a guy that's really going to surprise some people with his game. He's going to be relied on really heavily because Carolina just doesn't have a lot of size right now. And not only size, but just they don't have a lot of bodies down there with Sterling Manley being out. Brendan Huffman's playing a little bit, but I don't think you're ever going to get but so much out of Brendan Huffman with his ability. And, Bacot's really going to be relied on. But based on what I'm hearing, I know it was a concussion that Roy Williams mentioned. I mentioned this before we got on the podcast, so I'm actually headed to Chapel Hill here for 2 p.m. to hear from Roy and one player. I'm not exactly sure what player we're hearing from. I'll have to check the email that got sent out to us. But, yeah, we'll get a little bit more clarification on that from Roy. But, based on it being a concussion and Carolina having a week in between games, if I had to guess, and this is obviously just a guess, I would think he would be okay to play tomorrow night or Friday, whenever you put this out, Friday night against Gardner-Webb. But, like I said, that's merely kind of speculation on my end. I know he came off the UNCW game looking really wobbly when he did get hurt. Mm-hmm. So, you know how these concussions go. Sometimes, guys will be out for a few days and they're good to go, and then some guys could be out for a couple weeks. But if I had to guess, I think Bacot will be fine Friday night, but we'll get a little bit more clarification on that, here in the next few hours. But yeah, I think Bacot's a guy that's going to do some nice things this year as well. I think his size, I've been surprised with his ability to block some shots. He's had some really nice blocks against Notre Dame in particular. So I think Bacot's got a really nice ability to score around the basket and also defend around the basket, which Roy Williams has mentioned. So he's going to be big for this team going forward, and he has to be because, like I said, Carolina just doesn't have a lot of options down low right now. And with the status of Sterling Manley still being extremely up in the air, I mean, nobody really knows. I don't even know if Roy Williams really knows if he'll ever play again for Carolina. So Bacot's going to really be relied on heavily, and I think you'll see him do some really nice things, and maybe turn into a guy that, if he has a really productive year, could be a top 15, top 20 pick in next year's draft.
So there are some early season trends that I know, we've discussed on the podcast ourselves here at the Roy's Boys podcast that might be a little bit concerning to people. And I wanted to ask you, you look at two areas really. It's the free throw shooting, 26 of 47 in the first two games, and then transition points or fast break points, however you want to call it, with just 23 in the first two games. Out of those two, which is the more concerning to you going forward?
I think free throw shooting is a little bit more concerning for me. Mm-hmm. I think, at least watching them in person, I think it's been a little bit more glaring to the eye that Carolina's just not hitting free throws. I mean, Carolina could have beat UNCW by 30 points if they would have hit their free throws. You know what I mean? And
right.
When ACC play comes, when they play bigger opponents, games are going to come down to the wire. Carolina's going to have to hit free throws. And it would be one thing if it was just a couple of guys, but it's really just been the whole team that's struggled to hit anything. And that's a little bit concerning going forward. I think Carolina, they like to play fast. I'm not really worried about Roy Williams kind of figuring out that transition game. There's a lot of new parts in there. Right. They've had some guys banged up. I mean, B-Rob's out. Bacot was out for a majority of the last game. So they haven't really been able to field a full team yet, a complete team that they want to put out there. And then you get the likes of Anthony Harris returning what should be around the time Carolina travels to the Bahamas here over the next few weeks. So I think once you get the full team out there and really get those pieces out there, get a few more guards in there that can really run with the ball and really play in transition, I think you'll see that improve. And then, like I said, you got Roy Williams coaching. I mean, that's his bread and butter. I'm not worried about him getting that figured out. I think free throws are just something you can't necessarily coach. You can't really coach a guy. You can coach a guy how to shoot a free throw, but in a game, completely different scenario. You have to go out there and be strong enough mentally in a hostile crowd, or even playing at home. It doesn't really matter. You got to be able to sit there with everybody in the arena looking at you and hit free throws when it matters. And Carolina hasn't proven they can do that. They haven't even proven they can hit free throws when they're up by 20. You know what I mean? So
right.
It's going to be something that Carolina's going to have to figure out. But yeah, I think I'm a little bit more concerned with that free throw shooting because, I mean, Justin Pierce was a good free throw shooter. Cole Anthony's a good free throw shooter, and just to name a few guys that haven't been doing it as well. So that's going to have to change going forward, and I think it will. But that transition game, I'm just a little bit more optimistic about that. And I think you'll see Carolina playing really fast here soon because I think they do have the weapons to do that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Cole Anthony can do out in transition because I think that'll be really, really fun to watch. We've seen what he can do in a half-court offense, but seeing him play in transition a little bit will help. And like I said, I think once Carolina gets fully healthy, they'll be able to play a little bit faster because they'll have more bodies to be able to rotate in and out. Because, I mean, right now they're playing a 7-man rotation pretty much with B-Rob and Bacot status still being up in the air. So I think that'll improve, but got to hit those free throws, man. Those will come back to haunt you really quickly.
I totally agree. That's one of Roy Williams' biggest things is free throw shooting and, of course, rebounding. And, of course, he loves to push the pace. I think one of the other things that people really just haven't looked into just yet when they really focus on that concern is that Tar Heels, they've only been able to force 17 turnovers in the first two games. So there haven't really been a ton of opportunities. I'm with you. I'm not really overly concerned about this team in transition. I I think when the opportunities come, they'll be able to run. I'm a little more concerned about the free throw shooting going forward. But, hey, thanks for stopping by with us, man. As always, we love having you on to talk, man. That you're one of our favorite guys because, with us, it's literally just like us sitting at a bar having a conversation. So it's always great having you on, man. Make sure you go get that haircut, buddy, because, trust me, I understand. Gotta have yourself looking good. We gotta compete. Right.
Exactly. I gotta look good for Roy Williams here.
Well, there we go. We all look. We're all just chasing the legend amongst the Tar Heel community when it comes to the journalist for hair, and that is Ross Martin. We can't outdo Ross. Like that's just come on, man. So we're trying. But, all right, man, I'll let you go, and we'll talk to you down the line, of course. Make sure you guys check out Jacob's work at TarHeelIllustrated.com. Of course, Jacob Turner, THI on Twitter, right?
Yeah, man, you can check me out there.
There you go.
So, yeah, man, like I said, Anthony, always a pleasure to be on here. I always enjoy talking to you guys, and I'll hopefully get back on this thing very soon, and we'll do it again.
Definitely, man. Definitely. We'll have you on later in the year to talk about some Tar Heel basketball. Probably have you on sometime relatively soon in the non-conference season with all of the big-time tests that Carolina has coming up. But, yeah, thanks for joining us again, and we'll talk to you, buddy, okay?
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it, man.
All right. So that is Jacob Turner of Tar Heel Illustrated, of course, part of just a great group of people over there. They do a fantastic job over there covering Tar Heel athletics in general. Of course, you've got Jacob, Andrew Jones, who we mentioned, who does such a great job over there, Jared Hardy, Deanna King, who's really just focused on football, but just a great group of people over there at Tar Heel Illustrated, and we always love having Jacob on to talk with us. So, yeah, he gives you some great insight there on this Tar Heel basketball team early in the year. Of course, the Tar Heels with a matchup against Gardner-Webb. I believe this is going to be posted on game day. So tonight against Gardner-Webb in the Smith Center at 9 o'clock. That one will be on ACC Network. And then, of course, Carolina we'll wrap it up. Wrap up the early season. I'm not going to say the easier part of the schedule. Of course, as we saw the other night with Kentucky, there's really no easy part of the schedule. But Elon will be where the team that Carolina will close out against. That one will be. It's later on here in the week. Trying to get an official date on that really quickly for you guys. Of course, the Heel Tough blog will have you covered for all of that. That's where you can check out all of your Tar Heel basketball and football articles. We have you guys covered there. Of course, the Roy's Boys blog, which used to tie in with this podcast. Everything's been moved over to the Heel Tough blog now, so that's the main website for everything. Make sure you guys check that out there. That's where you can check out the podcast as well. Elon will be Wednesday night. That'll be at 8:30 on Raycom Sports Network. And then, of course, after that, the Tar Heels will have a week off, and then they prepare for the battle for Atlantis. So, as we mentioned, the tough schedule coming up for the Tar Heels. They're trying to find some of those solutions, as Jacob was talking about, with the scoring, trying to find, more than just Cole Anthony to count on going forward. Trust me, the head coach of the Tar Heels, the Hall of Famer, he'll find a way to get it done. So we'll, of course, have you guys covered on the Heel Tough blog. You guys can check that out. HeelToughBlog.com, as I mentioned. That's where the podcast is at as well. Just click the Roy's Boys podcast tab at the top of the page, and it'll take you to the page where you can listen to all of the episodes. Make sure you go back and listen to our prior episodes if you want to. If you want to get a review of the UNC Wilmington game, of course, go back and listen to that. And then, of course, some great stuff that we still have from the offseason if you guys want to go back and listen to it. Matt Doherty interview is on there, as well as some other great stuff that we did over the offseason. We encourage you to go back and listen to all those editions of the podcast to get yourself caught up. So, want to thank Jacob Turner for stopping by here today. Want to thank Josh for letting me take over and hold down the fort here for the Roy's Boys podcast today. And, of course, we want to thank you guys for listening. And remember, go Tar Heels.
And want to thank Anthony, my lovely co-host, who I just threatened to fire.
Just threw under the bus. Yes, thank you very much.
For taking some time out of his jam-packed, ever-changing work schedule to talk with Jacob Turner.
I like how sarcastic that was, but that is actually very true.
Really enjoyed the interview you had with Jacob. One day I will get to talk to Jacob Turner.